What's going on, my fellow farmer brothers and sisters? All right, so this is the last part of the video for the building of the heads, and you're going to see how gun parts can actually fix a Farmall head. Intrigued? All right, my friends, it is the next day, and it is time to lap these valves. Now, I do want to make one note. If you guys end up seeing in the book, and it says about putting these valve guides in those days, they recommended driving the valve guides in from the bottom to the top. They said not to drive it from the top down. The reason I like driving them from the top down is because you're going to burr or mushroom the ends. You will deform these in here slightly driving. This is an old one, so don't worry about this one, but you will deform these slightly driving these in. So personally, I think it's easier to drive them from the top down, and then when you fix this around here a little bit from driving them in, it's easier than trying to get down inside that combustion chamber and clean that, because they recommend to go in there, you know, with something. What did I use? I think I used a tapered abrasive stone that I'll put somewhere. Where I'll put it. I think it's a Madrill. Yeah, it's a Madrill. That's why I can't find it. I just use that. Now, that's not ring from this. It's from something else. But anyway, what I do is I take this and I run it just down into the tip a little bit like that. Well, the valve was like this. Then I run it like that. And then run that around a few times. And what that does, it kind of like chamfers just a hair. Just enough to knock any of the bad edge off you got from driving it in. Now, again, this is an old one. That's why this one's chipped up so bad, because this is the one I beat out. But anyway, like I said, you will mess this up, and it says in the book you're going to mess it up. And they recommend grinding it from the chambers. Well, like I said, it's a pain getting in there. So I do it from the top. I clean it up. You don't want to drill down inside there. You don't want to go screwing up and wallowing out your hole. You're just cleaning up, basically like chamfering around that edge, so that way the valve moves up and down nice and free. So you can do it by the book and try it from the bottom if you'd like. You can do it from the top. It's just the same, honestly. If anybody else really feels strongly that there's another reason why you can't run it from the top, I'd like to hear it. I'm always open for ideas. But other than the fact of just cleaning up that hole, I don't really see the purpose. So it's been a long time since we cracked a cold one to you guys. So cheers to everyone. It's been a long day at work, so it's time to have a beer before working. Oh, that's so good. Okay, so as I was saying, the two different size valves. So your intake valve is the larger one, and your exhaust valve is the smaller one. So you can actually see on the exhaust valve, see where it started to get like a slight roll to it from beating at the seat. So that's one of the reasons why I decided to go ahead and replace the valves in this engine. You see the intakes, they actually all look pretty good. So it actually just did that. I mean, it says that the seats are replaceable in the book for this engine anyway, but it looks like somebody did put the seats in. I don't know. I went ahead and, as you saw, reground it. Everything came out fine. So we are doing new valves. But all the intakes are actually all the original IH valves inside there. And they actually checked out pretty good, surprisingly. They were pretty straight. I mean, somebody could actually, if they wanted to, put these on the valve grinder and recut these just slightly and reuse them if they wanted to. I mean, they checked out straight. Stems and all are straight. So anyway, it's even got the part number around the top right there. Anyway, so we're gonna go ahead and let's get this. Let's get these things lapped. Let's get this taken care of. As soon as I get this head back together, I can start working on getting the pistons cleaned up, and then we're going to work on getting this engine back running. So I'm going to try to go ahead and use the larger suction cup on these valves without using the double-sided tape like I usually use. I'm thinking that these may stick a little better. Seems like it might, so we're going to find out. So we're going to put the valve grinding compound on there, and we're going to go ahead and start lapping these things in. So give me a second and we'll get started. Alright, nothing better than having a little bit of cherry tobacco in your corn cob with a beer after a long day at work, working on your tractor. Don't get much better than that. Okay. Let's get this one out of here. Seems like it might stick okay. Alright, well, clean this up a little bit. And these seats came out really nice. I couldn't be any more pleased with these. So what we're going to do, I usually like dropping a little bit of oil down in the hole for the valve guide they slide into. Helps it spin much easier. Go ahead and take and put just a little bit of compound all the way around. Try not to get this down inside your stem, because the last thing you want to do is start grinding away at your stem. So I always tell everybody, when you do this, start with a liberal amount, just enough to get on there. Drop it on down in. Let me see if I can stick this on there now. And that's it. Just work it until you get that nice ring. Sometimes you can go for the sound, and you can actually hear the slight sing sound when you know you got it just right. But you want to make sure that when you do this, keep rotating it. Like, after you spin it a little while like this, spin the valve around a little bit more, grind it around. If you can go longer strokes, do that. You just want to try and get that valve worked around there the best you can to make a complete circle. Oops, I can cut pop in there. Again, it's not a relay race. Take your time, enjoy what you're doing, and just get her done. So we're going to pull it out real easy. Try not to get that compound again on the stem. I'm going to clean this off and take a look and see where my wear mark is. And actually, that looks like it ground really nice. That actually looked really good for the first run. So what you're looking for is, I have a little bit of metal still at the top that hasn't touched, and a little bit at the bottom. So it's actually right in between, and it actually has a really nice line. See if I can get it focused here. Here we go. It's got a really nice line all the way around it. See that? That actually looks pretty good. Holy shit, I can't believe how easy. I'm a little scared now. This thing's coming out so good, so easy. This head's working out too nice. No, that looks good. That's nice. Alright, I'm going to clean this seat up, and I want to see what it looks like in here. It's actually looking good, except for there's a few spots I'm going to show you. I'm going to lap it a couple more times to get these couple spots out. But as you see, everything came out really nice. But I have a little light spot there, a little one there. So for the first couple of rounds of lapping it, just to have those couple, not bad at all. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to put it back in there, run it a few more times until those are gone. Once they're gone, this thing is perfect. So, all right, let me hook this thing back up. Alright, let's do it again. Now she's starting to slip a little bit. Must be getting a little bit of oil on the valve. Oh yeah, I wanted to ask you guys if anybody knows of any good place that sells rebuild kits for the M&W governors, the G11s, because the one on there doesn't look bad, but I wouldn't mind getting a rebuild kit and rebuilding that G11 on there, because I got to take it apart anyway and fix that tube on there. So if anybody has any good info on a place that sells the kits for that, shoot me a message down in the comments and let me know. And that's pretty much all this job consists of. Just taking your time and running around there nice and easy and cleaning her up. You just want a good seal. You're nothing worse than rebuilding a motor and then having it popping and carrying on and everything else and trying to figure out why, and usually it's just because something simple like the valves. Try the bigger suction cup. See if it hooks on there. I think that should just about do it, actually. Oh yeah, look good now. Nice even pattern, which is what I want to see. Now, like I say, keep in mind that once you do this, that valve is now married to that opening. Do not deviate, do not change them. So what I'm going to do is, before obviously I get this thing all done and ready to reassemble, I'm going to go ahead and pop these back out, So I'm going to spray this out real good with some brake clean to make sure all that's out of there. And then we're going to assemble this thing. So what I'll do is, before I pause the video and then miraculously come back and all the valves are done, we're going to go ahead and do the intake one now. And then I'm going to pause it and go to the next one. That way, in case I run into a hiccup or any other issue, you guys can see what's going on. Okay. Dump a little bit of oil down that stem. Now, like I said, now when you cut these seats, you want to make sure that when you do this valve the lapping and you look at that wear mark, you want to make sure that wear mark is close to in between the middle of that finished area. You don't want it too high, you don't want it too low, because that means then you either cut your seat too deep, or if you did something else and your seat's too high. So you got to make sure you get that wear mark just close to being right in that middle. That's usually what I try to go for. That's why I was saying it's so important when you do the valve cutting. When you cut those seats, take your time. Do not take a ton out. You only want to clean up what you can. Try not to go any further. You just want to give it a nice angle again. That's it. Another thing you want to look for, I guess I should mention, is the valve height. You want to make sure that these valves aren't sitting way too high, but you don't want these valves sitting flush inside the head too, because once they start sitting flush, then at that point, your valve seats are now cut too deep. So you're probably going to have to go and get your valve seats, have them cut, and have somebody put hardened seats in there. So you'll find out if your valves are bad. See, these valves are still sticking above the combustion chamber. They're still, above that casting. So these are still good. I could probably go for one more lapping on these if I had, valve cutting on these if I had to. Sorry, needs a relight. So that's another thing to look for as far as those valves go. Little off topic of talking about the tractors and the heads. I try not to get political about shit on my channel, but have you guys seen the news about this whole lab created meat shit that they're trying to push on all of us? Man, I tell you, they're destined to turn us into freaking guinea pigs and eat this organic, with this lab created shit. I want my meat to once say moo so I can say yum. I do not want to eat shit that's been created by labs and are calling it meat. Boca burgers, different story. You took plants and you made it into a burger? Okay, I can handle that. I prefer meat, but I can handle it. But you're going to make artificial meat and shit now? Hell no. They are dying to put the farmers out of business. First it was cow farts. That still makes me laugh every time I hear about that. They're worried about cow farts killing our ozone layer and causing climate change. But yet for the Super Bowl, all the rich people, what did they say? It was like 160 some private jets in the air for Super Bowl. Yeah, let's worry about our cows farting and destroying our climate. But let's not worry about all the private jets and everything that all these rich assholes fly in. Yeah. If we believe that, you tell us another one. They must really think everybody's really that stupid. Some of the stuff I saw in the news today, boy, I could just go on and on and on. But I try not to. I try to keep it where this isn't a political page. But damn, after a while, can these people just leave us the hell alone? Oh, yeah. Anyway, all right. That was my rant for the moment. All right, let's see how that one looks. Let's look at it in here first. Ooh, that one came out better than the exhaust one did. That girl's looking nice. And there we go. See, there's that line I was telling you about. I'm going to show you this line one more time. You know, for me, doing engine work is relaxing. I don't know why, but it's always been something about building motors. I guess I built so many motors for my 57 Chevys and my Chevelles and everything else. My 57 hardtop that I had, I back half that car, tubbed it out, and I put a 388 blown stroker motor in that car. And I tell you, it took a lot of time to build that motor in that one, but I want that thing to be right because that thing was going to be spinning some high RPMs. That's 671 BDS sitting on there. Let's just say that puppy was, she had some power. All right, so there we go again. See how you see that chrome line there? And then you see it right there. This one is actually like the money shot. This is like dead perfect. That is a beautiful line all the way around. You can see how nice that looks. That's what you want to really go for. I mean, that one right there is like ideal. That's absolutely perfect. So that's what you want to look for as far as when you do your valves. Like I said, it's all in the initial cut. If you have to cut those, take your time. And then you'll get a result like that in the end. And that will save you tons of money of taking this to a head shop. As long as your deck is true, as long as you don't have to have those valve seats, you know, replaced, you can do this at home yourself. There's no reason why you can't. It's just take your time and checking everything. And then watch your hand with a hammer, because I tell you, that shit's still, it's actually bruised here, here, and here from nailing my hand here. I hit it so hard that this looked like somebody implanted a golf ball under my hand. That shit was about probably that high. Man, that swelled up good. So, yeah, it's going down now, but you can see, well, you can see the bruise right there. Yeah, that ball peen hammer ain't no joke, I tell you. Oh well, ain't the first time, it won't be the last time. Alright, well, I'm going to go ahead and jump ahead now and get these other valves done, and after that, we're going to go ahead and start putting the springs, keepers, and seals and all that good stuff in here. So, we'll be back. Alright, and we're back. All the valves are lapped and look good. Alright, so now what we're going to do is I'm going to run a tap through all the exhaust. And this is 7/16 by 14 coarse thread. That's the size for the exhaust manifold stud. So I'm going to go ahead and get these tapped out real quick. And we're going to take this thing out and clean it. So let's start with the first one. I'm going to make sure that everything goes in there nice and smooth, just like it's supposed to. I'm just thankful that all these came out without breaking, because I really thought that one was going to break coming out, because I tell you, that was some of them were a little sketchy. But honestly, if one were to break, the easiest way to get a broken bolt out of cast iron, you can kind of do a very similar process that you can do on aluminum. You can actually go ahead and, if you have a broken stud, obviously you can't weld right to the broken stud with cast iron, because you'll weld to the cast iron. You want to take like a little copper, brass, whatever, little ring, the exact size of this. You want to hold it around that stud, around the hole. Then you want to go ahead and build up your weld around that, because obviously the weld won't stick to that copper or brass ring that you use. And then that'll give you enough to build up the weld on that broken stud. Then, if you want to make sure nothing sticks, get yourself a really flat copper washer, lay it on there, lay your bolt on top of there, and then go ahead and weld your bolt to that buildup of weld you just put on there. The heat will actually help break that loose, and then you have a nut to actually work off of. You can crank that right off. It's a lot easier than drilling and tapping. So if you have the means to a welder, try it that way. And like I said, but to make sure that you use, like I said, a copper or brass ring of some kind, and hold it over top of the hole, because you don't want to weld your stud to your head. That would make for a bad day, because then you have a lot of work to try to clean up. So just a little easy tip that you can do. I'm going to have to do that. I have a water head or thermostat housing, whatever you want to call it, for the 300 utility. Actually, for the 300, I think that one's broke too. I'm going to have to do that trick to it, because it is actually broke off inside there. Wherever now I laid that at, actually I think it's on top of my welder. A lot of junk out of there, as expected. Like I said, don't be intimidated by doing this kind of work. Just take your time, go slow. Watch my videos. Pete over at Few Acres Farms, he's very thorough, very detailed on the stuff he does also. He comes up with a lot of good tips, a lot of things that you can do to make your work a lot easier and stuff like that. And like I said, just kind of watch, take your time, and just do it. So that's all you can do. Nothing more satisfying than taking something that doesn't run and knowing that you did at least 80% of the work yourself and you got it running. It makes you feel really good when you're taking it to a show or using it around your property or whatever, knowing that your hands did that. And also make sure that you keep your threads cleaned out each hole. That's important too, because you don't want to go running that crap into each hole. It's a lot in this one. You can feel it and you can see it. And once I spray all this out with brake clean, the studs will thread in there nice. See all that junk in there. I knew there was a lot coming out of that one. All right. Well, I'm gonna drop my tap. I'm gonna number my valves. Put them in my cardboard. Let me find that real quick. Let me put those in my cardboard that I have labeled out for the direction of the head, so that way the valves don't get messed up. Let's clean this thing, and let's start putting some springs on. So let me clean this, and I'll be back again. You know, I almost forgot something else I wanted to mention. Also, top of these guides, see how they have a, convex to them? So what you want to do is, I found it easier if you buy yourself a pack of crush washers for a gun barrel. These are for AR barrels, if I can get it to focus. See that right there? So it's actually a crush washer that's actually, concaved. So it's a 1/2 by 28 crush washer, and it goes perfectly around to that angle, and it actually will sit in there. So that way when you put your hardened washer on there and then you actually beat this in and drive it down, it actually won't crush the top of this and actually break it over where you got to fix them. I actually forgot, and I did like the first 3, and then I was like, well shit, I forgot about using the crush washer, because I used that once before. And you can see like this one here, see how perfect the top is? Didn't harm it in the least. And that right there, like I said, will go down, it'll follow around it perfectly, and then you beat on it. The reason I say get a pack of them, I don't know, get 10 of them. Usually it takes for, the 8 valve guides, and only takes like 2 of them, 1 per every 4, and that right there will actually follow that angle perfectly. Like I said, it won't crush it, beat it in, and then your valves are actually going there perfect. You don't have to worry about following up in the end. So just a little tip, crush washer for a gun barrel. Like I said, this is for an AR-15 barrel, and that actually right there fits and follows that perfectly. It sits right on there. And then now these are made to crush, so that's why I say at least get a pack, because once you beat down around 4 of them, these will start to flatten out a little bit. They'll still hold their shape, but they'll flatten out, and then, you know, you can just replace them. They're cheap. You can get them pretty much anywhere. Price, you can order them from Brownells, you can order them from Bear Creek Arsenal, whatever. And like I said, use that to drive these down. Makes it much easier. All right, everything's all tapped out and cleaned out. Now it's time to spray this thing out, and we're going to start putting it together. Alright my friends, so I got everything cleaned up and ready to start assembling, and then I decided to go ahead and check some of these RotoCaps just to see and make sure they were good. So in case you guys had never seen inside of one, that's the RotoCaps. They go on the exhaust. You can see that one right there has a broken spring. That spring's good, that spring's good. This spring here was broken, and that spring right there is short as well. An easy way to go ahead and fix this, again, the big, you know, everybody says the gun's the big bad, you know, thing out there. This is a spring from an AR-15 detent. This actually is for the front and back takedown pins. It's a little detent spring it comes with. The coils are exact, as you can see. If I can get that even, you'll see. Let me do this without the camera in my face. Okay. See the coils? They're pretty much exact. As far as the compression, see how nice and soft that spring is? It's got just enough tension to it where it's not stiff. Now here's another spring. This is from a safety on an AR, and that one, see, it's a lot more stiff. So that kind of spring right there wouldn't work. Size-wise, it's close, but the pressure's too much. So if you guys end up having any of those RotoCaps that have, you know, as long as you got that bearing in there, if you can match those bearings to something else, do that as well. But if you get yourself some the takedown pin springs from an AR-15, you can go ahead and use a set of flush cutters and snip that spring to size, and then go ahead and put it back together real easy, and then put the cap back down and put the keeper back on. All the other ones were good. It was just one, it felt a little gritty turning them. So that's an easy way to fix them, just so you guys know. As you see, like I said, dead perfect. Size, everything. The point of the RotoCaps are for the exhaust. So as that valve is moving up and down, the RotoCap is made to turn it, so the valve is always moving. So that way it doesn't get hot in one area and warp the valve. So that's their theory behind it. To find a set of RotoCaps, if you don't have them, can be really expensive. They ask a lot of money per piece for those. So if yours is in halfway decent shape, but you just have bad springs, go this route. Works every time. I guess I'll go ahead and snip a few of these and drop them in. Well, this one's already snipped, so I can show you right now. I'm going to try to do this with one hand without dropping it. This is the one that I made. Keep the bearings all going the same way, and just drop that right on in. Just like that. And works perfect. Now I'm going to replace that one, and replace that one, and then put this cap back together, and then she'll be good to go. So all you gotta do is pull out this retainer ring on the bottom side, real easy. Just go in there and separate it, pop it off, keep the cap flat, lift the lid off, and then go ahead and fix your caps. Like I said, as long as you got your bearings in there, super easy. I mean, you can find these bearings places if you have to, so save yourself some money. All right, let me set this up in the stand because I cannot do this with one hand. All right, let me see if I can do this without shooting any of them across the room as I'm trying to film this. So put one of the original springs that look good up against there. Take the flush cutters, get real close, hold on to both pieces, give it a snip, notch your finger, check for the size. Really try not to drop this. Size-wise, that looks good. So all I gotta do now is cut one more. Actually, no, I don't have to cut more. I only had the one that was bad. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and push this bearing forward, get the spring out. As you see the size difference there, how small that spring is now compared to what it's supposed to be. I want this thing to rotate like it's supposed to. And drop that spring in place. Rotate it around. And that spring right there actually got bound up, broke, and is in two pieces. And that's the last thing you want, is that floating through your engine. So again, it takes a second to check everything. Go back in like that. And let's see if I can show you. And there you go. You got one fixed RotoCap. So, bad springs, good springs. AR-15 takedown, D10 springs. Not the safety selector spring. That one's too thick. So, do that and you're good to go. Alright, let me see if I can get this back together now really easily. Let me see something real quick. That was... that went this way. So put that little shim they have in there down that way. Don't drop it. Put that back upside down. Put that back on like that. And now to get this back on. And in the meantime, you want to make sure as you're doing it, you don't pop those little bearings and all back out of place. I gotta see if I can find my spreader. I gotta open that up and drop that on. Trying to do that between these boards ain't working. Okay, so after multiple different ways of trying to figure out how I want to spread this thing out, as to say, that little thing will bite pretty good. Very simple. Decided to just use a socket. I put that little spring retainer back on there, went from the back side, and gave it a good push. And it snapped it right back in place. And now that RotoCap, I gotta put some oil in it, but it actually runs on the bearings again. So that's it. That's all it takes to put those together. Now we are good to go. Alright, drop some oil on that puppy. And let's start assembling this again. Like I said, I checked all the other ones. All the other ones look pretty good. I don't see any springs or bearings or anything loose in them, so we're good to go. Nice. Yep, no binds, no anything. Just a little bit of my skin from pushing it together. No, she feels good. Alright. So, not much different than the other RotoCaps. Alright. That fix is done, so turn this thing around and let's start putting this thing together. Alright, and then another thing is, so they give you these PC seals to put on there. The only way you're going to get these things to stay is you got to make sure that the tip of these stems are completely free of any oil. Because if you have oil on there and those valves start moving up and down, it'll pop those off every time. The easiest way to push these down here without messing up that little compression style spring, take a 9/16 socket. It's for a 1/2 inch drive. Hold the valve from the bottom, take and push this down real easy, and as you push it down and the bottom's out, it will spread that retainer clip and it'll hold it in place and it won't come loose. Do that very carefully. Don't screw with it, and then your valve will go up and down just fine because your keeper's going to go in there and lock, and then it'll work just fine and they should stay on there. If you don't do it that way, guarantee these are just going to keep lifting up every time you see that valve move. I know from experience. It's already happened. Alright, I gotta rotate this head so I can get my clamp on there. Actually, before I do that, I'll show you real quick. So that's all cleaned off. Alright. Make sure you have a little bit of oil at least around the center, because you want the center to be able to move. Don't put oil on anything else. Like, very tiny bit. That's it, just a little bit. You do not want to drip it through there. All right, we're gonna push that valve back up. Actually, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna start it with my hand. I want that opening of that clip to face towards me. All right, we're gonna get started like that. Hold it, push that valve on through. I could force this through if I wanted to. I'm just trying to take it nice and slow. Okay, we're through. Get to the second pop right there. Hold the valve in place. Take your socket, give it a push, and make sure that's all the way down. Just like that. And I might just go ahead and just do that for every one real quick. I might just do that part, get those done and over with. And then I'm going to turn this thing on the side so I can start putting the all the springs on. Now I did oil those stems first, so that way they have some oil to ride on inside there. Alright, unfortunately you're not going to be able to see me do this again, so basically now I'm going to go ahead and hold the valves, and I'm going to push all these on the other side, and then we'll get these springs on. Okay, I can truly say, I didn't realize how hard this was to do, to film it. To do it without filming it, it's pretty easy. To try to do this and get the money shot, as I say, this is a pain, but it's worth it so you guys can see what's going on here. Alright, let's go get the spring compressor opened up. Get that puppy to there. Well, that's in it good. Alright, I'm trying to do this here without blocking everything. Alright, so you want to get the spring compressor right on the valve. Grab a hold of your handle. Get it centered up on that stem, and then pour it down, compress it, let it hold, and then you got your keepers. If you haven't put keepers in before, you want to make sure that taper goes towards the head. They both have to go in there just like that. So it's like a wedge lock, and those rings right there will hold onto that valve. So go ahead and put your keepers in. Hold them in place like this. Slowly release your compressor enough to make sure that spring is centered up on that cap. And you want to let it go real easy. And release it. And then if you want to double check, you can go ahead and give it a couple hits. And then proceed it. So that's all there is to it. So let's continue on. Alright, and next one. Now, in the event you get all this on and you realize that you got one of your springs not quite sitting in its seat, you don't have to take it back apart to fix it. It's no big deal. I'll show you real quick what you can do to fix that if you have that issue. Release it like that. Okay, so if you have an issue, let me grab a screwdriver. If you ever have an issue where one of your springs, like you get all this done, everything looks good, but you realize, oh shit, I didn't get that spring in the pocket. You can just take a screwdriver real easy. I usually use one that has a broken tip on it. That way it doesn't go making, cuts or marks. And then just go ahead and give it a tap. Boom, pop it right back in the seat. Easy peasy. You don't have to sweat it. That's pretty much it. So we're just going to do that right on down the line. And this head's ready to go back on. Whoop, look at that. Apparently that little keeper right there. Released from that rubber a little bit. I'm gonna fix that one real quick. Alright, so it's just that little retainer ring. Just popped a little bit past that rubber down there. So I just wanted to pull it off, make sure that spring went back in the groove of that rubber. Pushed it back on and pushed the valve back in. This is why I said it's not a relay race. Take your time and check everything as you're going, each individual one. Even though you feel like you checked it before, check it again. It's easy for something to pop out of place on you. It's really easy when you're trying to film and talk and not pay attention 100% as you're doing it. So you really got to watch what you're doing. And be careful on these RotoCaps. You want to make sure that you get these in and you don't go damaging them. You got to get these in nice and straight. And then remember, RotoCaps go on the exhaust. Standard caps go on the intakes. Now, if you have an issue also where these keepers keep falling on you and you don't have enough hands, you can't hold it and everything else, just dab a little grease on the stem and then those little keepers will lock right into that grease. And that will save you from chasing them down. Like I said, as I go, I like to give everything a pop as I'm going to make sure we're good. And when you buy the valve kits, they come with the new keepers and springs. They come with those seals, but they do not come with those caps. So that's why I said it's imperative to make sure you keep the caps and make sure those RotoCaps work good. So in the event you got to buy one, it is what it is, right? But hey, at least I showed you guys probably a trick to fix those springs you'd never seen anywhere else. Whoever thought a gun part could fix those springs, right? Hopefully that saves somebody out there a lot of money. Because like I said, sometimes you can pay upwards of $100 easy for one cap. So, and them springs are cheap to buy. One more, guys, one more. Be slow when you release this valve spring compressor too. Don't go flipping it really fast, especially when you're working with RotoCaps, because you can very easily break one of those caps and springs. So be careful. And be very slow compressing it too. You don't want to go jarring that cap to the side and then pulling it off center, and then you end up messing up the springs and the bearings. And this is where I said right here, just release it nice and slow, hold those keepers in place. Bam, easy peasy, lemon squeezy. We are good. Give this puppy a flip. easier said than done. These seats are quite heavy. And just check them. Oh, see, there we go. Prime example. There's one of the springs right there from being on an angle. So all you gotta do, boom, popped into place. There we go. One head ready to rock and roll. She is good to go and ready to go back on. Unhook the camera, show this real fast. Show one more thing, and we're going to call this a wrap on the head. And the next video is going to be the engine assembly. So let me disconnect here. All right, so there you go. All the RotoCaps. Exhaust, intake, intake, exhaust, exhaust, intake, intake, exhaust. And if you're unsure which is which, very simple way to look at it. Look at your exhaust. Exhaust is the outside. Then the other port is on the inside, then you get your intake and so on. So just look at your exhaust manifold and you'll be able to tell if you don't know as far as looking at, you know, the valves. So just remember, like I said, what I showed you about the valves too. And I'll flip this and show you. Yeah. And there goes my stand. So exhaust is small, intake is big. Intake, exhaust, exhaust, intake, intake, exhaust. And then another thing I did was I always take a flat file, since I knew my head was actually pretty true, and took the flat file, went across and made sure the surface was all cleaned up. Any high spots, anything on the outside edge, cleaned that up. I did the same for the exhaust and did the same for the water outlet. Went across there real nice and easy. Other than that, guys, that's it. We're going to call this head a wrap. And next we're going to be jumping into these pistons. So make sure you hit that notification bell, like, subscribe, and share. And until next time, thanks for watching.